Hello friends, this is Mona Bhatia. You are watching Learners Academy. In our endeavor to provide you an explanation of the poems of class 10, we are presenting one more interesting poem by Nissim Ezekiel, and the name of the poem is Night of the Scorpion. Stay tuned guys. Night of the Scorpion by Nissim Ezekiel. Nissim Ezekiel was an Indian Jewish poet, actor, playwright, editor and an art critic. He was a foundational figure in the post-colonial India's literary history. Nissim Ezekiel is also recipient of Padma Shri Award and Sahitya Akademi Award. Now about the poem. Uh, I remember the night my mother was stung by a scorpion. Now, in the first line, poet is remembering that night when the mother was stung by a scorpion. 10 hours of steady rain had driven him to crawl beneath a sack of rice. So, it had been raining for 10 hours, and to escape the rain, the scorpion had crawled beneath the sack of rice. Parting with his poison, flash, and diabolic tail in the dark room, he risked the rain again. Here, it stings the poet's mother, and then risk the rain again means goes back to into the rain with a devilish flash of tail. Next, the peasants came like swarms of flies and buzzed the name of God 100 times to paralyze the evil one. Now, on hearing about the incident, the peasants, the villagers, they rushed to the poet's house. They all came like swarms of flies, means they all came in large numbers. They buzzed the name of God, means they started chanting the name of God 100 times. Now, to paralyze the evil one is very important. What does that mean? They wanted to stop the venom of the scorpion from spreading into mother's body. With candles and with lanterns, the villagers, what did they do? They searched for the scorpion. Okay, they casted huge shadows using candles or lantern and on the mud walls of the house, but they searched for him. He was not found, but they could not find the scorpion. They clicked their tongues, means for that, in order to find the scorpion, they were trying to attract the creature. They clicked their tongue to find him, but all in vain. They could not trace him. With every moment that the scorpion made, his poison moved in mother's blood, they said. Now, according to them, they had a notion that, uh, you know, um, they had a belief that in case the scorpion will make movement, the poison will spread into the mother's body. So they say, may he sit still. So they were all wishing that the scorpion would sit still. They hoped that the venom should not spread in mother's body. And then they say, may the sins of your previous birth be burned away tonight, they said. And they hoped that the sins of mother's previous birth would burn away that night by going through the pain and sufferings. Next line. Um, this is may your suffering decrease the misfortune of your next birth. They said that her present suffering would decrease any misfortune in her next birth. Now, next line is, may the sum of all evil balanced in this unreal world against the sum of good become diminished by your pain. What does these lines mean? Means the villagers, they all hoped that what is experienced in this life in terms of all the evil action, all the suffering in the real world will be balanced by or diminished by her pain. Alright. The idea of human consciousness is seen as a balance of evil and good done in one's lifetime is shown here. Now, may the poison purify your flesh of desire and your spirit of ambition. The idea that mother must endure the pain and poison, and this will help her purify her flesh of desire and also her spirit of ambition. All right, to get spiritual salvation, so that there are no desires of body and ambition. There are no desire of body and mind. All right. Now they sat on the floor. They sat around on the floor with my mother in the center, the piece of understanding on each face. So they were all sitting around mother, and they all had an understanding of her pain, and it was all evident on their faces. So now more candles, more lanterns, more neighbors, more insects, and the endless rain. So as the time passed by, more neighbors they came in with more lanterns, and thereby the number of candles also increased. Even there were more insects, because insects, they are attracted towards flame or fire. And there was a non-stop rain, endless rain. Now my mother twisted through and through, groaning on a mat. The poet's mother was groaning in pain, and was tossing and turning and twisting her body. All right. Now the next paragraph tells about the father's action and what was his behavior and what were his belief. Now see, his father was a rationalist. My father, skeptic, rationalist, trying every curse and blessing. So his father was a rationalist who believed in reason and knowledge rather than opinion and belief. But and he was skeptic also. He doubted all that villagers were doing, uh, that was said by the villagers. But however, even he could not help but listen to the villagers. At this time, he tried everything that was advised by those illiterate and superstitious villagers. He tried mixtures, he tried powders, he tried herbs, hybrids. He even poured little paraffin on the bitten toe. Can you believe it? He even poured a little paraffin upon the bitten toe and put a match to it, and he lit it with a matchstick. Now there was a flame on the mother's toe. Now the poet says that he watched the flame feeding on my mother. Means the flame grew bigger and bigger, and the narrator watched all these rubbish things without even resisting, without voicing his opinion. I watched the holy man perform his rites to tame the poison with an incantation. The poet says that he watched a holy man performing different type of rites to make an effort to reduce the poison and to lessen its effect with incantation. Incantation means chanting. About 20 hours it lost its sting. So it took whole 20 hours. After 20 hours the pain subsided. It lost its sting means the pain subsided. Now this is the most beautiful paragraph. My mother only said, "Thank God the scorpion picked on me and spared my children." The poet's mother, after suffering 20 hours of excruciating pain, in the end was grateful to God. Can you believe it? That, and she said that God had spared her children of this misfortune, and God picked on her. And it was indeed typical of any mother. The climax of the poem depicts the selfless love of mother for her children. I hope you have understood the poem. If anything is missed out, please comment on the comment box. Words and phrases to understand in this poem are diabolic. Diabolic means anybody having the qualities of a devil or of wicked qualities in them. Paralyze, to stop an activity. All right. Diminished means to reduce. Groaning. Groaning is the uh, mournful sound conveying pain or grief. Rationalist means a person who believes in reason and knowledge rather than opinion and belief. Incantation means the chanting of words claim to have magical power, chanting of mantras and all. So that is called incantation. Now we have certain questions to have a better understanding of the poem. The first one is explain. The peasants came like swarms of flies and buzzed the name of God 100 times. In small villages, whenever there is a bad news or a calamity, the peasants of villages they come together. They show their solidarity. They stand together in times of grief, and they have all full faith in God. They keep on chanting God's name. This is what they can do. They are good at. They don't have any medical facilities or any other help at hand. So their faith in God comes very strong, and they show their strength by just being together, by being with the person who is in pain, and which is very important. This shows their caring nature. The next question is explain to paralyze the evil one. The peasant, they thought that by chanting God's name, they can stop the wrong things to happen. Like here, in this case, they chanted the God's name to stop the venom spreading in mother's body. Now the next one is explain. My father, skeptic, rationalist, trying every curse in blessings. At this time, the poet's father, who was otherwise a rational man of logic, he also gave in to the advices of illiterate peasants. He resorted to their traditional beliefs and superstition, though he was a man of reason. And such is the case with all of us, isn't it? We are educated, but at times like these, we educated people also behave, we also give in because we behave like puppets in the hands of some illogical advices just to make sure that all these things help the person. And here the poet's father tried all means to make sure that his wife feels better. He tried everything that was advised from curses to blessings like powders, mixture, herbs, and hybrids. He even poured paraffin on mother's wound and lit it with a matchstick to stop it from poisoning. The next one is justify. The poet's mother finally found relief, and the poet's mother thanked God. As a matter of fact, the pain always takes time to subside, but there is always a scene or a drama which is created around the sufferer to show the care and concern by others. In this case also, the pain took its own sweet time to get subsided, but mother had to go through all possible remedies. Every possible remedy or measure was tried on her body, and she suffered for 24 hours. Now mother was went through hell. She suffered excruciating pain for 24 hours. So when she got all right, the first thing that came to her mind was to be thankful to God. Thankful to God for that her children did not get stung by the scorpion. She was thankful to the scorpion that it chose mother and spared her children. All right. Figures of speech. The poet Nissim Ezekiel has used various figures of speech beautifully in this poem. I have already highlighted all these figures of speech in different colors so as to you get better understanding and it's easy to grasp. Now the first line has alliteration. The letter M is repeated here for better poetic effect, and the second line also has got alliteration. The letter S is repeated here. Now you see this line, this also has got alliteration. Letter P is repeated, parting with his poison. So the figure of speech here is alliteration. Now there is a transferred epithet here in this line. Flash of diabolic tail in the dark room. Here the adjective diabolic has been, which means devilish, has been transferred from the scorpion to his tail. Alright. Now the peasant came like swarms of flies. Now peasants have been compared to swarms of flies. That means there is an explicit comparison made between two unlike objects using the word like. Alright, so the figure of speech here is simile. Next is and buzzed the name of God. So the word expressing sound are used to dramatize the effect. The word is buzzed. So this is onomatopoeia, and 100 times there is an hyperbole here. The word 100 is an exaggeration of any action here. Now with candles and with lanterns, the word is repeated, so the figure of speech is repetition. Now we'll go to the next line. They searched for him and he was not found. So the opposite meaning words here are used here. That means here the figure of speech is antithesis. Now I think I've missed this very important line. The figure of speech here is a metaphor to paralyze the evil one. There is an implied comparison between the scorpion and devil or a evil creature. So this figure of speech here is metaphor. Alright, now here him and he, so there is a tautology here because him and he, both these words refer to the same scorpion that stung the poet's mother. Now here there is alliteration also. The letter F is repeated. In this line also there is an alliteration. Letter M is repeated 4 times in these two lines. Now here again there is alliteration. The letter S is repeated 3 times. Here again the figure of speech is alliteration because letter B is repeated for better poetic effect. Now we'll go to the next figure of speech. Here I missed out one more. They clicked their tongue. Clicked is the sound made by the peasant while they were shooing away the not shooing away, basically they wanted to locate where the scorpion is, so they were clicking it to attract its attention. Now this figure of speech is onomatopoeia. Now we'll move on to the next figure of speech. The word some is repeated here in these lines, so that means figure of speech here is repetition. Alright. Now this is evil and opposite. These are two opposite meaning words used in the same line, basically not in the same line, but they are having the same idea which has been carried on in these 3 lines. So the figure of speech here is antithesis. Alright, the words of opposite or a contradictory meaning, evil and good, are used here. Now may the poison purify your flesh. This is important because this figure of speech is oxymoron. Oxymoron means in which two opposite ideas are joined to create an effect. Now poison, how can a poison purify somebody's flesh? So the figure of speech here is oxymoron. Now there is a we'll move on to the next figure of speech. Here you can see the word more is repeated 4 times in these 2 lines. So the figure of speech here is repetition. Again repetition because word through and through is repeated. My mother twisted through and through, groaning on the mat. Now groaning is a sound that is made while crying. She was in pain. So the figure of speech here is onomatopoeia. Now the next figure of speech here is curse and blessing. You can see both of them are opposite in nature. Curse is the opposite of blessing, so the figure of speech here is antithesis. Next is P is repeated in the same line, so the figure of speech here is alliteration. Next figure of speech is I washed the flame feeding on my mother. So the letter F is repeated. So the figure of speech here is alliteration, but there is one more figure of speech here, that is personification. The flame has been given the quality of feeding. The flame has been personified. Alright. Now the next figure of speech here, you can see the letter P is repeated. That's all, my dear students. So the figure of speech topic is over. We'll move on to the next topic. Critical appreciation of this poem. We'll take 5 topics here. The title of the poem is Night of the Scorpion. It depicts the depth of a mother's selfless love who is stung by a scorpion. Now this poem is the poem is written by an Indian Jewish poet, Nissim Ezekiel. He was felicitated by Sahitya Akademi Award and also Padma Shri Award. He is the most famous, he's the foundational figure of the post-colonial Indian history. And the rhyme scheme of this the poem is written in free verse, without any rhyme scheme or any meter followed. It is the narrative style of telling an incident without rhyme scheme. The various figures of speech used in this poem to enrich the poem are simile, metaphor, onomatopoeia, antithesis, alliteration, repetition, transferred epithet, hyperbole, oxymoron, and inversion. I'll give you a few examples. Antithesis in the line, may the sum of all evil balanced in this unreal world against the sum of good. So the word evil and good, the words are of opposite or contradicting meaning in the same paragraph. Onomatopoeia is seen in the line, they and buzzed the name of God. Buzzed is a sound denoting word. They clicked their tongue, so the sound produced by when you click your tongue. Now the metaphor is there in the line, to paralyze the evil one. The scorpion here is implicitly compared to the devil. Onomatopoeia, groaning on a mat, so the sound was produced, this groaning sound was made by the mother, right? Now personification, I watched the flame feeding on my mother. Here the flame is given the quality of a human being. Transferred epithet, of diabolic tale in the dark room. Here the adjective diabolic, which means devilish, has been transferred from the word scorpion to the word tail. Now the central idea of the poem is it depicts the superstition Indian mentality along with the care and affection of the villagers and their efforts to comfort the pain of the mother. The central idea of the poem is in the reliance of the superstition in the Indian society. This poem sarcastically acknowledges the lack of education, awareness, medical facilities in a village, and that is how myth and superstitious they flourish. One more central idea that unfolds how a woman or a mother has selfless and unconditional love for her children, and this central idea is depicted in the last stanza of the poem, where mother says, thank God the scorpion picked on me and spared my children. Why I like or dislike the poem? I like the poem because this poem subtly shifts the attention of reader from superstitious villagers to the idea of selfless and divine and unconditional love of a mother for her children, because I can relate to the sensitive and touchy end, as I have seen my mother praying all the time. A mother lives and loves selflessly. This poem also inspires me to educate the innocent villagers and illiterate people to give away their superstition beliefs, and they should join the mainstream of the scientific world. Alright, we should not be held up by the status quo, dare to change and use the belief and change the world. That should be our motto in life. Alright, this poem is an example of satire. Means satire means it is ridiculous of the human follies and ill practices like superstitions. And that's all, folks. Thank you very much. Please watch our YouTube channel, because I've already covered many poems of 10th standard, and it will be quite helpful for you in this lockdown period. Keep watching, stay tuned. Thank you.